What does the United States Vice President Kamala Harris, selling baby parts, and an attack on freedom of speech and press have in common? The answer to that is Planned Parenthood. Let's talk about it. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and I still feel sick to my stomach after preparing this report for you. And while viewers' discretion is most definitely advised, I encourage all adults watching, whether you have pro-life values or not, to not miss a second of this important report. Today, I bring you an interview with David Daleiden, an American journalist and the founder and president of the Center for Medical Progress, which is the same nonprofit organization whose citizen journalism exposed abortion giants at Planned Parenthood for allegedly negotiating the shameless harvesting and selling of late-term abortion baby parts in 2015. I stress the word allegedly, an effort to ensure that Planned Parenthood, with its hundreds of millions of dollars in funding from the U.S. federal government and other big backers, don't squash this report. But why don't I show you a clip from some of what was uncovered by Daleiden and his team back in 2015 to let you decide.
Could you adjust
in
the
past,
procedure if you knew, okay, they need high volume of this?
18 to 22 week neural specimens, in
So that
both
it's
hemispheres
intact.
intact.
Yes. Yeah.
You could do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can. I mean, some of it is really outside.
Group claims she also talks about providing intact fetuses through partial birth abortions, a practice that's illegal.
So we do basically D&Es. Intact is probably less than 10%.
Less than 10%.
Sometimes, if someone delivers before we are able to see them for procedure, then we are intact.
Planned Parenthood wouldn't go on camera, but in a statement, the nonprofit calls the video misleading and deceptively edited, maintaining they insist on the highest standards. We have and will always follow all laws.
The series of undercover footage that was released took 3 years in the making, allegedly exposing top Planned Parenthood doctors and leaders for relishing in the booming dead baby body selling business. It contributed to a lot of wins for the pro-life movement, such as reforms to the federal sponsorship of fetal experimentation, and gave Planned Parenthood some heavy hits, such as leading to some of their business partners having to shut down and admitting liability in the unlawful selling of fetal tissue to companies across the globe. But instead of receiving a prestigious award for leading the investigative team that uncovered all of this, Daleiden and his colleague Sandra Martin and the Center for Medical Progress were put through a modern-day witch hunt, spearheaded by none other than the United States Vice President Kamala Harris, who at the time was California's Attorney General. Daleiden, found guilty of trespassing, conspiracy to commit fraud, breach over contract, and ordered to pay Planned Parenthood millions of dollars for their journalism. Daleiden's battle continues in the appeals court and will follow that, but their plight has not silenced them one bit. In fact, just days ago, the nonprofit has released even more never-unseen footage that's quite disturbing of Planned Parenthood. We're going to get to some of that right away, right after we hear from Daleiden what it was like to be raided after the snap of the fingers from Kamala Harris.
We have all known, and Planned Parenthood for certain has known, is that we can never take for granted that any of the gains that we have achieved will be permanent. We will celebrate the fact that we know how to fight. We will celebrate the fact that we are prepared to fight.
I do want to talk about your current Vice President, Kamala Harris, and her role before she was the Vice President. You ended up getting raided, and a lot of the footage was taken during that raid. Walk us through some of that.
Sure. So one of Planned Parenthood's very powerful allies that they have leaned on for the past several years to try to help them in suppressing speech and reporting about their criminal sale of aborted baby body parts is Kamala Harris. Originally, when she was the Planned Parenthood endorsed Attorney General of the state of California, so basically the top cop in the state of California, which is where I grew up and where CMP is based. Kamala Harris, acting on orders from Planned Parenthood, a specific demand from them to seize the undercover footage and seize the unreleased footage so that it couldn't be released anymore. Kamala Harris sent a team of 11 California DOJ agents to my one-bedroom apartment in the spring of 2016 to execute a search warrant on my home, seize the undercover footage, and that led to the first ever in the history of the state of California, the first ever criminal prosecution of an investigative reporter under the California video recording law. Undercover video is, and undercover video reports are filmed and published on a weekly basis in the state of California by news organizations, citizen journalists, animal rights activists, all kinds of people. But if you dare to secretly record in public areas, by the way, in restaurants and hotel lobbies and places like that, if you dare to capture the damning and incriminating statements of the professional abortion industry in your undercover reporting in California, that is the first and only time in the 70-year history of the California video recording law that the Attorney General files criminal charges against you. So that case is the direct responsibility of Kamala Harris, working at the behest of Planned Parenthood to try to support their political narrative and try and suppress speech that was damaging to them. That case has been kind of slowly falling apart over the past several years. More charges getting dropped, prosecutors leaving. That's still something that is partially on appeal right now. And there's some very interesting. I mentioned at the hearing, there's some interesting new discovery documentation that's starting to come out in that case that will hopefully have more to share about in the coming future that I think is going to be very revealing about how deeply embedded Planned Parenthood and Kamala Harris have been with each other over the years to try to suppress reporting on the criminal trafficking of aborted babies.
Let's talk about some of the footage that's not released. And just recently, you presented some of that inside of a congressional hearing. I don't know if I said that right. Let's show a clip of you presenting what you were about to expose.
My organization is responsible for the series of undercover video reports in 2015 that caught Planned Parenthood's top-level leadership callously negotiating the harvesting and sale of aborted baby body parts. I'd like to play some of that footage now.
We've been very good at getting parts on liver because we know that so I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to strike it out intact. A lot of people want intact parts these days. They're looking for specific notes, AV notes, SA. I was like, wow, I didn't even know. Good for them. Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted longer, right? And then, like I said, always as many intact livers as possible.
What would you expect for intact tissue? What sort of compensation? What sort of...
Well, why don't you start by telling me what you're used to paying? I want to Lamborghini. I want a Lamborghini.
I mean, we could pay you $1,000 up to $1,500 for a liver.
Yeah.
Because that's in such high demand from our...
How interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is great. And I think the fact that there's for me, it's just like somebody to take it would be great. But I think financial incentive from you guys is going to be like to the people we have to get this approved will be very happy about it.
The audio and video that your viewers are seeing is from unreleased undercover footage that fortunately was subpoenaed from myself and from CMP back in late 2015 by the House Oversight Committee. And so Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually, who is a member of the Oversight Committee and has access to the footage because of that, was able to start to release and play some of the most damning clips at the hearing in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday last week. And so the clip that I believe you're referring to shows a Planned Parenthood chief medical officer at what was one of their biggest abortion centers in the country. It's since the abortion part of it has since been shut down because of the change in the law at the U.S. Supreme Court. But this clip shows a top-level Planned Parenthood abortion doctor describing how when they're delivering a baby whole for organ harvesting in a partial birth abortion, which is a federal crime, crime. While the baby is coming out alive and whole, they can just rip off one leg or maybe both legs in order to try to disguise it and make it look like it's not a real partial birth abortion, and then still deliver the rest of the baby's torso for organ harvesting. So she's talking about mutilating the body of a baby being delivered alive while the baby is coming out of the mother, in order to cover up the crime of partial birth abortion and allow for more organ harvesting and sales.
I need you to make one more pass. Like avoid PBA. Yeah. I was like,
to avoid the federal law.
Too close. I was like,
Oh, wait, so you're sitting there like coaching her, like watching how to...
No, but I mean, we know, right? Like if I'm doing a procedure and
it's
seeing
breech.
that I'm in fear of that it's about to come to the umbilicus, I might ask for a second set of forceps. Hold the body at the cervix and pull off the leg.
Oh, so you gotta, okay.
So it's not...
Right.
Yeah.
It's just so sickening, and just to hear how callous they sound when they're discussing this. Now, there's something about, I guess, how they're making this legal, how they're saying that they own these baby parts. Can you explain that?
Sure. So in recent years, CMP has been doing a pretty comprehensive public records investigation as well. We've been submitting a lot of FOIA requests and public records requests under different state level FOIA and Freedom of Information Act and public records laws. And so we just reported a couple of weeks ago on a contract that we discovered between Planned Parenthood in Southern California and the University of California in San Diego, where in this contract, the parties, Planned Parenthood and the University of California, agree specifically for valuable consideration, which is a key element of the federal law against selling aborted baby body parts. Planned Parenthood and the University of California agree for valuable consideration that Planned Parenthood will supply their, quote, proprietary aborted fetal body parts to the University of California. Proprietary, your viewers are probably clued into, means that you own something and you have a right to sell it. Planned Parenthood says they will supply their proprietary aborted baby parts to the University of California for the valuable consideration of receiving ownership of any intellectual property or patents or patent applications that the university submits after developing them using the aborted baby body parts from Planned Parenthood. And the royalties on stuff like that can be worth up to millions of dollars in ongoing revenue over the years. So this is pretty shocking. I mean, this is a black and white in printed black and white writing agreement between Planned Parenthood and a major taxpayer-funded research university to sell aborted baby body parts for a kind of financial value that is orders of magnitude greater than anybody has ever discussed before in the past several years. So it's and I think it's very telling that Planned Parenthood and the University of California have received multiple requests for comment from news media over the past couple of weeks since we released this information on March 5th. They have been completely silent about it.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. How would anybody want to speak after this next clip I'm going to show? This, actually, I'll back it up a little bit to the beginning part of the clip, and you can explain it after. It sounds like somebody is sort of telling stories of people who are involved in abortions. And it starts like they're kind of saying that, it's not always easy to do it. Let's play that part of it.
My coping mechanism is to focus on the baby fetus. Reverence for something that was once alive and now it's not. That's the hard part about this stigma. I have an issue with patient pain. It makes me feel like I'm a bad person inflicting pain. I take that home with me, and I have a really hard time with it.
So this is a clip of the head, the national director of Planned Parenthood's abortion training program. Planned Parenthood basically operates a two-tiered abortion training program at many universities around the country. Oftentimes universities where they are also supplying aborted baby body parts for the university to experiment with and get taxpayer-funded research grants with. But it's called the Ryan Residency Training Program. on the fellowship in family planning. It's this sort of like two-tiered system for grooming medical students into becoming new late-term abortion doctors for Planned Parenthood. And this person who is the national director of that program for Planned Parenthood is in a conference room, a big hotel ballroom full of 200 to 300 late-term abortion providers who are all there as the audience listening. And she's describing to the audience statements that Planned Parenthood abortion trainees have made during what they call their psychosocial workshops or values clarification workshops, which are basically brainwashing workshops where they try to redirect and reframe and really get the abortion trainees to suppress the very real trauma and emotional difficulty that they are having in doing these late-term dismemberment abortions. So one of the quotes that she reads, the trainee says, my coping mechanism with all of this is to focus on the baby and try to have reverence for something that was once alive and now is dead because they killed it in the abortion. And then in another moment, the Planned Parenthood national director reads a quote from one of them who said, well, an eyeball just fell down into my lap during the abortion, and that's gross. And then the audience laughs and applauds. That was probably one of the top 5 most horrific moments that I experienced undercover when we were filming.
Let's play that.
Another. An eyeball just fell down into my lap, and that is gross. But I'm saying to myself, this abortion is going well and it's going safely, so I'm fine.
Absolutely horrific. They seem so desensitized to go from that somber moment to the uproar and laughter. And what is very compelling to me is the admission that this, in fact, was a living baby. It was living. They acknowledge that. And then they laugh about an eyeball in the lab. Just so disgusting. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Anybody who wants to find out more can obviously go to your Twitter and also to the Congress for Medical Progress website. Now, tell us how much money you're up against owing, and is there some sort of page for people who want to help out with your legal fees?
Sure. So in retaliation for recording and publishing news stories just like this, Planned Parenthood filed multiple retaliatory federal lawsuits in front of a federal judge in San Francisco who actually helped open and run and fund a Planned Parenthood clinic before he became a federal judge. We asked for him to be recused. He refused to recuse himself. He refused to disclose his relationship with Planned Parenthood at the beginning of these cases. It's all very bad. But so he issued a $25 million fine in total as a result of Planned Parenthood's retaliatory lawsuits against us. All of that is either on appeal right now or moving back on appeal right now. So we're still fighting. We're still publishing. And if you want to find out more about our work and what we're doing, your viewers can go to www.centerformedicalprogress.org.
Very brave of you and your whole team to continue to expose this baby part selling business that is Planned Parenthood. Thanks for being on Rebel News.
Thank you.
At Rebel News, we don't back down from telling you the other side of the story, even if that means we help other journalists tell their story. If you appreciate reports like this and more at Rebel News, consider being a part of what makes these reports go strong. Unlike 95% of media in Canada, we don't take a penny from the federal government. We rely solely on you. So please go to rebelnews.com/donate and donate what you can.